Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of Horse's Mouth Live, the Extraordinary Advisor Show. My name is Ellen Rogin, and as always, great information for you for every area of your life, especially your business. And I'm very excited about our conversation today. It's all about how financial advisors can hire the right people. When's the right time to hire somebody? How do you onboard them? The advisors I work with sometimes feel challenged by this initially about, am I ready to hire somebody? How do I do it? There's a lot of beliefs that it's super hard, and sometimes it is. But our guest expert today, Brian Luper, is going to help distill all this information and give you really great tactics and tips for getting that right person in your practice and how you can be the person to create the space for them to help bring the right person on and help your business grow. So let me give you a little bit about Brian's background. First of all, Brian and I met at the NAPFA conference, and I was so impressed to hear about what Brian and his wife and partner, Ginny, do in their practice, which is called the Strategic Implementer. They're a consulting firm that works only with financial advisors, so they know this industry backwards and forwards. He's helped small and mid-sized advisory firms find and hire everyone from the director of first impressions, which we should talk about what that actually is, to the COO. And he's developed he's got all this experience in interviewing, selecting, recruiting people. He does this for his clients, but he has lots of information he shares with advisors that are not his clients. He has got a background in law and entrepreneurship, and brings this unique perspective to the work that they do with financial advisory firms. So welcome, Brian. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad we could get this scheduled, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, me too. And when I met you and Ginny, I was so excited to hear about people that really have experience in this, because I know the advisors that I work with sometimes feel super challenged. Like, I feel like it's the right time, or my person left. How do I find the right next person? So let's just kind of start at the beginning. Let me start with, how do advisors know if they're a small firm and they're hiring their first person? How would they know it's the right time and it's a good investment for them to get somebody in?
I think the best way to think about it is, are you using your time in the way that makes the most sense to you? So if you're in the part of your business where you've got to be growing your business and you've got to be focusing on business development a lot, and you're not able to do that because you are mired down on a lot of the details, you've got a lot of administrative work that you've got to handle. That's sort of a prime scenario when it's the time that you need to reach out and actually find somebody else to get help. When you've got things that keep getting pushed down your task list lower and lower, and you just can't really find the time to work on them, those are the first things that you should be delegating to your first staff member.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's say someone's decided, okay, I need to hire somebody. Maybe it's not their first person, maybe it is. How can they be more strategic about being the right person in, and how do they even attract these people?
So I think one of the first things, which kind of follows up well to that idea, is that when you have a clearly defined job role, it kind of should fall from what you don't want to do anymore. So the things that you want to delegate first should really be put into the job description and what this new person should be doing. And that should be the first step that you take before you put a job ad up or figure out how much you need to pay this person. You've really got to have a list of what you'd like somebody to be able to do. So that's really one of the first steps that we recommend advisors do before they figure out, okay, how do I actually find this person? We have to have a clear picture of what the person is going to be doing in the firm. And along with that, I think one important part of it is to be able to describe what your firm is about, why it exists, why, what is your ethos? What are the things that really make you tick? Why did you start your company? Why did you go out on your own to become an advisor and help people with their financial lives, and being able to communicate that well, and then put that into a job description and a job ad is super helpful to attract the right person. Everybody kind of has a different, take on that of why they're helping people with their financial lives. And the better you can articulate that to a potential staff member, new hire, the more it's going to resonate with people. And the final aspect of that is to make sure that you're competitive in the marketplace. And to make sure that you have a compensation package that's competitive with whatever that means for you. As a lot of small businesses and advisors kind of start out and think about, how they're going to hire. There's a lot of things to think about in the compensation package. Not just, what's the salary going to be, or even if it's an hourly position, what that looks like. But you've also got to think about health insurance and the other benefits that people are going to be looking for. And most of the time, when you're placing a job ad, trying to attract the right person, there's a lot of times that people are sorting those job ads by what the pay is and what the benefits are. So you want to make sure that you've got something in there that can attract the type of person you're looking for. And that's one of the most critical steps, but one that a lot of people skip over a lot of times.
I really love that you included about kind of the personality, why you got into this business. I know a few of the advisors that I've worked with have shown me their job descriptions. And I'm like, would you ever want to work for this person? Like, they sounded so awful and didn't really have their personality, or they borrowed a friend's job description that was perfect for that business, but really not the personality. And I think that they probably would have attracted somebody that wasn't as good of a fit. So I think it's beautiful that
it actually makes the search process a lot easier. It makes it and can be shortened it significantly if you're communicating your ethos and the values that you have in your business. If you're communicating that in a job ad, that people are going to self-select out of that job ad if it doesn't resonate with them. So you don't even have to worry about those people. And the people that it really does resonate with, those are the people that are going to be like, oh, I need to apply. I need to follow up. They're more avid candidates as you move through the process. So it actually makes the whole process much easier throughout the whole thing.
That makes so much sense. Let's talk a little bit about whether somebody's working with someone virtually or in person, or if it's a hybrid thing. How are you seeing in terms of the appetite for applicants out there? How important is this now that we're moving from really COVID to things opening up? Tell us what you're seeing and how an advisor might want to think about this.
So I see a lot of, industry and just general articles about remote work, what employees want, what managers want, and what, business owners want. And it's a mix. I think there's a lot of different avenues that you can go down. But one of the first questions that I ask advisors when they come to us and want help with their hires is, can this position be done permanently remote or not? And I would say probably 60% of the time, the answer is no, it can't. They need to be in the office. That's not how our business works. We're not set up that way, which is fine. Knowing that it may take a little bit longer, the compensation, depending on the place that their business is in the country, and the compensation may be a little bit higher, but that's one of the first questions I ask, because it can really change how we're looking for someone. If a position is permanently remote, it really changes the number of candidates that we get significantly. So for a lot of the positions that we're looking for, maybe, and one of the first positions that a lot of advisors hire for is either an admin or client service associate type of a person. And typically what we see, if it's a pretty well-populated area, mid-sized city, we may see 150 to 250 applicants to that type of a position, assuming we're competitive in the marketplace with the compensation and all that kind of stuff. When we make that position permanently remote and open it to everyone, either in their time zone or in the time zones next to them, it could be 2,500 to 3,000 people that we're getting, which really makes, the top 2% of people that are applying, that's a huge pool of people. And so we can really be more selective in who we're choosing and making sure that we've got the right attributes for a fully remote person. Whereas with the in-person, you're looking for a different skill set. With a remote person, you're always looking for somebody that's self-managing. With somebody that's in the office, it's a little bit different. You still want that. I think everybody, wants someone that doesn't require a whole lot of management. And then hybrid is obviously somewhere in between. I think a lot of employees these days, once they got a taste of working remotely in the last 3 years, they want to know that that's an option, even though if it's not right now. They want to know that, after the training and I get up to speed and I learn all the systems, that, if there's 1 or 2 days a week when I can work from home, they like to know that there's flexibility there. When there's not flexibility there because of how the business is set up or just personal preferences among, the management team or the owners of the firm, it does decrease the number of candidates that we see. Not in half, but it does. We'll probably see maybe a 25% reduction in the number of candidates if you want somebody 5 days in the office, regular work hours, no possibility of remote.
That makes so much sense. Okay, let's say somebody's finds these candidates and they've filtered it so they're not interviewing 2,500 people, but a smaller number. What's the process you would recommend for vetting and making sure that you find the right people? I know when I had my practice, I got lucky with 3 of my employees. They were there for a very, very long time. And the one person I thought I was vetting in a better way was the worst person I ever hired. So I think I was lucky, not smart. And I created a decent enough work environment that people wanted to stay 20, 25 years. But I know there's a better way than I had done it when I had my practice. So what are some of the things you recommend?
So it does go back to sort of preparation, having a hiring process that you're going to vet people through and that you're going to take any candidates that you're interested in through the entire process and then sticking to that. So, how and when you're going to interview people, what types of interview questions you're going to ask them and why, what answers are you actually looking for? What information are you going to get out of that? I always say this example. I was talking to an advisor once, and one of his interview questions was, if we go over into the kitchen in the office, would you be willing to empty the dishwasher? And I asked him, like, why are you asking people this question? This could be an associate advisor or even a lead advisor. He would ask the same question every time. And he said, oh, well, I want to make sure that they're a team player. I'm like, there's other ways to get there versus bringing the dishwasher into this conversation. It's not, and in his mind, it was like, okay, this is a value that I want to make sure that they have. But the candidates, when they're sitting in the seat answering these questions, think this is kind of a nuts question. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And certain people are going to be put off by that question. So having knowing what you're going to ask in each interview, asking most of the same questions in each interview is important too. And who is going to be interviewing. So if you have a bigger team, making sure that, one person is going to interview the person first, then send it on to the next stages. I think there should also be a mix of interviews with people in the firm who are going to be working with the person and objective assessments that are going to give you actual numbers and data to make sure that they have the skill set that you need. We're big fans of using a detail orientation assessment along the process, because there's not many jobs out there that detail orientation, at least in our business, the detail orientation isn't important. And other assessments, and everybody's kind of got their own flavor. Some people like to use a Colby assessment, which works well. There's several out there that can kind of give you some feedback. And is this person going to work well with your people in this position? And so mixing those two things in a reasonable amount is important. One thing I shy away from is having too many interviews or too many assessments. And I think a good number for both of those, again, depending on the position a little bit, is usually 2 for each, 2 interviews and 2 assessments. And then, we have lost candidates when somebody wants to do a Colby and a detail orientation and a caliper assessment and this and that. And it's like people just drop out on their own because it's too rigorous. And they can, at this point with unemployment rates so low, they can they've already gotten another job by this point, by the time we've gotten them through all the way through our process. And, with larger or sort of mid-sized firms, a lot of times there's a tendency to want everybody that's going to work with this person sort of have FaceTime with them before they're hired or before they're made an offer. And sometimes I hear of, okay, that this person's going to go through 4 or 5 interviews before we get to the offer stage. And again, you're going to lose people. You may find somebody who is really interested in your firm. They may really connect with the ethos that you put out there, either on your website or in the job ad. But more often than not, if you're, sort of chasing down really good candidates, you're going to lose those folks just because it takes too long for them to talk to that many people. But I mean, having that process in place in sort of an intentional way and making sure that you stick to it with every candidate. And I mean that in both the candidates that are sort of borderline. If at some point you rule someone out, you go to the first interview, person is clearly not a fit for your firm. Don't go through the whole process by any means. That's enough to rule them out. They can get ruled out at any stage throughout our hiring process, or it should be through anyone's hiring process. But people that you're on the fence with, you should continue to move them through the process. People that you absolutely love and you're 100% sure you're going to hire this person, those are the people that you really need to make sure you hit all the steps in your hiring process. And we've seen that that's one of the hardest challenges that we have, is when we've got just a rock star that comes in and interviews and everybody loves them. And then they do terrible on an assessment. It's like, we can't move forward with this person. They don't have the skill set, or at least, our assessments tell us that they don't have the skill set. Even though they seem like a perfect cultural fit, they may not be a great hire because they're just going to be frustrating you along the way as soon as they get in the door.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm thinking of the detail assessment I would have failed if someone was, because I'm a macro person, but that's okay. I hired people with good detail.
I think it's important with the assessments, especially for whoever is going to be making the decisions, to take those assessments, to make sure, to get a gauge, how would you have done on this assessment? And, I think that's important to then say, okay, this is what I am. I'm a whatever, 70%. If somebody else scores an 80, they'd probably be pretty good. They would work well with you, not have too much analysis paralysis because you're probably moving pretty quickly. But at the same time, it's like, if you had just given that assessment without taking it yourself and getting your own score, you might not see as 80 as a great score, and you might really second guess whether or not they would be good in the position. So it's an important part too.
That makes sense. I have a question that might not be a fair question to ask you, but so I'll give you a chance to not answer it.
Okay.
So my question is going to be, do you have a favorite interview question? But if that's not a good question to ask, then the question would be, how do advisors know what are good interview questions to ask?
So I'll answer them in reverse. So I think advisors, when you're thinking about what questions that you want to ask, you should think about what information you're trying to gain from that question. My favorite types of interview questions are questions that don't have a right answer. They're preference questions. And I typically ask most of the same questions in every interview that I do. And I've done tens of thousands of interviews in the last 8 or 9 years. And they're always questions that the places that I get the most information from candidates are questions that ask them about either feedback that they've gotten that they disagree with over the years in performance reviews or something like that. Is there something that, you either that was a surprise to you or you disagreed with? I like to ask people, what gets under their skin? Where do they have the least amount of patience? What can bug them? I like to ask people, one question that I get an interesting response from candidates. I ask candidates, considering your previous jobs, is there anything that you don't want to have be part of your next job that you've had in previous jobs that you may want to move away from? And people tend to think about that like, that's a good question. I don't really know. I haven't really thought about that. Because, they're in the interview just thinking, this is my opportunity to sell myself. And I'm asking them, hey, what do you not like? What would you prefer not to do? And it gets them sort of in a more conversational, more honest, answers, which is always a good thing in an interview. So I'd probably say that was my favorite interview question is what do you not want to do that you had as part of one of your previous jobs?
That's great. Thank you. Okay. So let's say now I've hired somebody I think is going to be great. What are best practices in terms of onboarding, making sure that it's really a good fit, assessing if they're really the right person? What are some things you'd suggest?
So yeah, one of the main things that we do at that stage is a training process, a training schedule of all the things that you'd like this person to be able to do in the first 3 to 6 months. And basically, this should be part of the process of creating the job description, creating the job ad. Here's all the things that we're going to need this person to do, and then basically distilling those down into either processes, workflows, things like that they need to be trained on. Systems, obviously, software. There's a lot for most of the systems and software that most of the advisors use that we work with. There's online training, there's YouTube videos, there's whole databases of training on those things. So it can be more of a passive learning type of situation. I will say, even for those types of things, though, it's good to go in and curate which videos. Don't just have a new hire and turn them loose on the whole Schwab or Redtail or whatever. They've got hundreds of videos out there. Oh, just watch whatever you think will be important. That's not any direction that a candidate at a new job or a new hire needs to hear. You actually want to go through, make sure that they're watching the right videos. Everybody tells us in all the systems that they have that they only use 50% of this or that or whatever. That's how everyone works with every piece of software that's out there right now. And so having a candidate watch, hours of videos on a section of software that you don't even use is a huge waste of time. And having that sort of training process and training schedule in place is going to be critical to their success in the position. And I say schedule intentionally because what I like to do is to break the different areas of training that they're going to need to get into first week, second week, third week, et cetera, and continue on and have with a bigger firm, this is more important, but have the person who they need to get that training listed right there on the training schedule. You need to go to Sharon for this. You need to go to Emily for that. She's the guru in that section. And make sure that the new hire, all of the onus of what they need to be trained on is put on the new hire. So here's this whole schedule. Here's who you need to get with in each one of these areas. And then it's their responsibility, the new hire's responsibility to schedule them on those people's calendar. We found that when we give it to the manager or the owner or even, some of the staff members that they know that they need to help train the person, it doesn't get done on time. And when somebody is starting a new job, they usually have a lot of time when they're not able to actively, have productive time of they know exactly what they're supposed to be doing every day. So their schedule is obviously very much more flexible than your other team members. But at the same time, it's important to make sure that they get the training to their level of satisfaction. And so that could be, if they're not a super tech savvy person, they may need to schedule 2 or 3 hours on something that somebody that, is very tech savvy would only need half an hour. And usually new hires are going to know that. They're going to know what their strengths are, where they're not so strong, and then sort of be able to gauge do I need more time here? Or if I didn't get the training to my level of satisfaction, I need to go back and have another session to go back and make sure that I get it. And basically putting the responsibility on the new hire to schedule all of these things and to make sure that they get their own training to their level of satisfaction leads to much more successful training than having it super structured in a way that, okay, you're going to sit with this person for an hour here to learn X.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Well,
makes
they
so
might
much
learn some of
sense.
it, but yeah.
Yeah. So we just have a couple minutes left, Brian. So much great information. I know we could go on for hours, but is there something that you've seen have been the biggest pitfalls or an example of something advisors should really watch out for? That would be helpful.
I kind of mentioned this earlier, but falling in love with a candidate it's a curse sometimes when you get somebody who it just seems like a perfect fit from a personality perspective. And a lot of times what we'll see is, somebody interviews really well, send them on to the next stage. They talk to this person, they talk to the next interview person. And somewhere along the way, we start to get details of their answers to some of the interview questions, even though personality plus, everybody wants to hire them. I start looking through some of their answers, and they're basically telling us they don't really want to do this job. They want to do the next job or a slightly different job. And that also leads to people changing the job based on the candidate. So even if it's somebody that you fall in love with that wants this job, they may not have the skill set, like I mentioned earlier. And if you fall in love with somebody who, kind of wants to be in your firm, but actually wants to do something a little bit, tangential to what you want to hire for, and you're like, oh, we'll get them. And then, they'll do some of what we want. And yeah, what they want to do is great too. It never works well. It always ends up crashing and burning. And it just, I see it happen sometimes still, even though I try to talk people out of it. But, stick to what you knew you wanted when you started this process, the description of things that you want this person to do. Somebody comes in and says, I want to go be, if you need a client service person and you've got somebody that wants to be an advisor in 6 months, that may work for your strategy. Probably not if this is one of your first, 5 hires. So make sure you stick to your guns and hire the person that's going to be right for this job, not the next job that they're going to want.
Great advice. Thank you. So much great advice, so much tactical information that advisors can use right away. If people, I know you do some of this recruiting work, you also work in much deeper levels with your clients. If people want to learn more about you and your work with the strategic implementer, where should they go?
So our website is thestrategicimplementer.com. It's at the bottom of your screen right now. And you can schedule a meeting with my partner and I, Jenny, and she's just full disclosure, she's my wicked stepmother, which is how she describes herself too. So, but we've been working together for about 9 years, and you can schedule a meeting with us to figure out if we might be a good fit for you, right on the first page of our website. So we can help with hiring, and we also do consulting with smaller and mid-sized financial advising firms exclusively.
Cool. Great. Thank you. And thank you for all of you listening and watching. My name again is Ellen Rogin. You can find out more about me at ellenrogin.com. That's ELLENROGIN. And if you go to ellenrogin.com/horse's mouth, you can download my special report, What Extraordinary Advisors Know That Others Don't. So I hope this was helpful for you for your next hire, your first hire, whatever it is for you. And remember to be great and create great every single day.